It is my distinct privilege to welcome Ted Roosevelt. He is the Managing Director of Barclays Capital. He is also a member of the Council for Foreign Relations and a member of the Economic Club of New York. And more importantly, he is the chair of the Pew Center for the Global Climate Change, and he happens to be the great-grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt. It's a pleasure to welcome you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk about the cause that's very dear to you, which is climate and your role as a conservationist.
Climate in the United States, we are having a difficult public conversation around climate. Difficult in the sense that there are some people who are firmly convinced that the scientists are manipulating the data and they don't believe it. And instead of having, in my opinion, a respectful conversation where both sides can listen to each other, it has, as true of much of our politics, become hyper-polarized. That's unfortunate. So let's just step back for a brief second, and I'll bring in India in your question. We have seen global average temperatures increase. That's a phenomenon. We know that we're not getting more radiation or more heat from the sun. In fact, in the last, say, 20 to 30 years, it's going down lightly. So what accounts for the fact that global temperatures are rising? What accounts for the fact that we're seeing across the planet glaciers retreating? Something is happening. And a very good explanation of that might be climate change and anthropogenic or human activities. The people who disagree with this thesis disagree with it vehemently in some cases, but they never offer a peer-reviewed alternative. And that, in my opinion, is not credible. I want to listen to their views with respect, but they should, in my opinion, at least come up with an alternative theory that's peer-reviewed that accounts for all the things that we can observe. Long-winded answer to a great question. If I had a glass, let me take my wallet. Now, as I take my wallet and push it over here, what's going to happen? Why? Can you prove the existence of gravity? Can you prove it like a geometric theorem? But we know it exists because it accounts for all the observations we can make about how planets go around the sun, how the moon revolves around the Earth, how we can identify planets. But it's very difficult to prove. But we're pretty comfortable gravity really exists. I feel the same way about climate change.
So the skeptics who don't believe in this or don't want to believe in this for maybe political reasons, they are the ones who have the loudest voices. So as chair of the Pew Center, what is your answer to them? And more importantly, leading to my next question is, what is your role at Pew?
Two questions. One, part of my answer is a very simplistic answer. When I go out and I talk to rural farmers and ranchers, some of them are somewhat skeptical about it, but they see it. They see what droughts are doing, and they're beginning to ask themselves questions. Almost all of them will have insurance against lightning hitting their barn. Now, they don't really expect lightning that's going to hit it, but if it does, the damage is going to be immense. The idea that we're going to pretend there's no possibility at all that climate change is taking place, with all the damage that's going to do to countries that have low-lying areas on the sea, damage to biodiversity, changing patterns of water, resulting in deserts coming down from some countries. The damage from that is utterly immense, and the cost will be very high. Isn't prudent risk management suggest that we begin to put in place measures now that will diversify sources of energy to address that? That's prudent risk management. So what do we do at Pew? One of the things that I think makes it a little different is that we believe that the business community is as interested in this as we are. There are lots of insurance companies, reinsurance companies. There are a lot of utilities that clearly recognize that climate change is something that they're going to have to address. And so we are working together to put in place thoughtful policies that will help us address that, working with the government. And one of the things, in my opinion, that makes the Pew Center as effective as it is that we're very pragmatic. The science and the reports that we put out have generally been regarded as being amongst the very best. They're factual, they're very good, and we have a number of businesses who appreciate our independence because we say what we believe, but they very much enjoy working with us.
I want to take a complete turn now and ask you a question about your professional career, which is with Barclays. The economic uncertainty has been with us for the last couple of years. Looking ahead a couple of years or 3 years, 4 years, still not sure in many areas. You are in a very good position to help us understand, if I may ask you this.
Well, you know, talking about the economy is like saying who is going to win the World Cricket matches. It's very hard. It's very hard to really get that right. I think that we are in a situation that is a little bit different from anything that we've seen in recent history. Globally, countries and individuals have borrowed too much money, so globally we're going through a process of deleveraging. Fiscal policies to address that are hard to put in place because if you have more stimulus, people save the money rather than spending it because they want to deleverage. So fiscal policies aren't quite as effective as they need to be. Monetary policy has gotten, in the United States, we're very probably close to the end of our strength, if you will. But we need policies that are well thought out. They're going to result in job creation. And one of the things that I think you can do is that investment, well thought out investments in infrastructure, jobs that are going to help us diversify sources of energy, which will be important. I tend to believe that we're going to get solar and wind energy are going to become less expensive. But the cost of coal is continuing to rise. So it's going to be relatively easy for us to reach grid parity in the relatively near future. All of that suggests that let's try to accelerate that process. And in that, as we accelerate it, let's try to create jobs that are sustainable so that people can have good lives. And one of the phenomena that we're dealing with, if you go out to some of the very large manufacturing companies in this country, you will see that the number of people who are working in them are 20, 30% less than they had 25 years ago, but the output is the same. Productivity is going up so much as a result of capital investment and the use of very good technology. Yes, of course there's been job outsourcing, but we've also seen a great deal of technology. So one of the things that we have to do, obvious, is we have to educate the American labor force so that it can take advantage of these technologies and people can be productive.
You know, you come across as capitalist with a conscience. The others don't have it, but it's very apparent with you. You look at the emerging economies, and they seem to do a little better than the West because there's financial prudence. It's inherent in the culture of not spending beyond your means, saving for the rainy day, etc. Is this something that the West has lost, you think, in the game of catching up?
I'm afraid that we have probably lost that. I think the banking industry shares some responsibility on that. I think Congress clearly shares responsibility for that in the sense that they encourage people to borrow, to invest in houses, and people thought that there was no way for housing prices to go but up. Well, we know better than that. We should have known better than that then. So if you look at who's sort of responsible as a society, all of us in the United States are responsible. But technology has worked enormously well in countries like Brazil, countries like India. I first went to India in about 1975, and that country is like going to a different country today. What has happened in the 35-odd years since I first went there, I might as well be going to a different country. The country is making remarkable changes, and I'm a big fan of what's happening in India. And I also am delighted to see that we are beginning to have a much closer relationship between India and the United States. And to me, it seems to be a natural relationship.
Sure, so that leads me to the next question. I think you have seen more India than many Americans who have traveled. You see the emerging India, young India, and in their zeal to be like the West, what are the lessons you think you will tell them to be careful of now in the pursuit of success, so that they don't make the same mistakes?
Well, I think one of the first lessons is remember where you've come from. Always remember your roots. And what I admire about some of my Indian friends is that they are very committed to going back to their country and making a difference, committed to helping people that are less fortunate than they are. And that seems amongst some of those Indian businessmen to be a very strong ethic, and I have an immense amount of respect for it. And I also see some of the Indian businessmen who are very strategic in how they run their businesses. They have a global approach, they're smart, and they're the kind of people with whom I'd like to do business. Terrific people.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Great interview. Thank you.